You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona, and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Hey, welcome everybody. So excited to have you all back for another episode of the show here. And we have another special guest with us here this week. James, you want to say hello?
Hi, my name is James. You've just told everybody. I'm James Reed.
Welcome,
the
James.
Science
There's
Night
more
podcast.
to you than that. Which podcast are you with?
Yeah, so it's a super creative name. We talk about science at night, so I've decided it's Science Night. There's
Awesome.
a long story behind it, but we're just going. We could get the .com, so why not?
Yeah.
Fair. I mean,
You have a nice,
I love
succinct
talking about science.
website. Why don't you tell everybody what your website is?
My website is scinight.com, where you can find like all of our old episodes. We got merch. We got some fun cone snail merch. I think you talked about cone snails in an older episode.
We did, yeah.
We got 9-inch snails t-shirts waiting to be purchased by everybody.
I saw your 9-inch snails t-shirts. Those are
Oh.
snazzy.
that is the real triumph of
amazing.
my career so far.
So what if people want to check you out in your native environment, what's your quick sort of spiel for folks on what Science Night podcast is all about?
Yeah, so the Science Night podcast, we have like two parts of every episode. One, we try to talk to a scientist or group of scientists about their work, so we can like kind of make the person doing science seem a little bit more accessible and not like this like nerd in a room or like this science god that just goes on like big television shows. And then we also talk about science news and events so that we can keep everyone up to date. And, obviously we're trying to get clicks, so we choose some of the weirder or harder to explain things. So yeah, that's
Awesome.
where we're going with.
That's really cool.
Well, you are speaking our language here when you talk about weird. So we are excited to see what you came up with this week. I'm kicking things off. And, James, you did, I haven't heard this yet, but last week I talked about how slime mold created the complex structure, or was able to recreate the complex structure of the Tokyo subway system.
Yep.
Which
Weird.
sounds very strange. You got to check it out if you haven't heard it.
Yeah.
And also like how simple choices or small changes in nature can end up having big effects or create very complex systems as the end result of these little simple choices. And it's certainly true on a small scale with something like how slime mold moves, but it's also true when it comes to complex systems, like the complex systems of our bodies. It's certainly also true of even larger scale for things like ecosystems, right? So small changes or choices can lead to the formation of complex systems. And complexity is just one of these emergent properties of life, which is super cool. So with that in mind, I want to tell you both a story this week that beautifully, I think, shows this in action.
Okay.
Our location is familiar, a place we've all visited together, at least in our minds, collectively here on the show. We're going back to Yellowstone National Park.
Fascinating.
Beautiful place.
Is it what I think it is? I think I know what you're going to be talking about. Oh my gosh. Keep going. Yes.
I love it.
I'm super curious to know if this
reveal
is...
right here.
I know. I'm super curious to know. Well, I'll give you some clues, Rachel. Okay. All the characters in the story are familiar as well. We've covered them all on the show. We're talking about wolves, mountain lions, and Toxoplasma gondii.
Love it.
Okay.
Is that where you thought I was going?
No.
I didn't think so. Now, unless you have a great memory of every show we've ever done, and like nearly all 300 topics we've covered, that last one might not roll off the tongue like wolves and mountain lions. Victoria talked about this, which is a parasite, back in episode 3.
Toxoplasmosis.
Episode 3.
Episode 3. That was like the cat urine thing, right?
The episode's called "The Cat Made Me Do It."
Ah, yeah.
It's actually something found in cat feces, not cat urine, just to be
Okay.
clear on that.
I don't have a
At
great
cat
memory
owners,
for the 300 near 300 topics that we have done.
yeah, it's getting tough. Cat owners, maybe you said this already, but cat owners may be familiar with this parasite. It is found in cat feces. It's believed actually that up to 50% of the global human population may be infected with this parasite. In the U.S., though, it's thought to be closer to 11%. So obviously, the infection rate in different countries varies quite a lot. So a pretty big question people have is, does being infected matter? In humans, they are doing some studies on that. We're not totally sure what all the ramifications are. You certainly don't seem like sick from having it. But the question is, could it be altering your behavior? We know from studying animals that when you study mice that are, for example, infected with the parasite, they're actually more attracted to cats.
Right.
Which is bonkers, that mice would want to be attracted to cats. But if they're eaten by the cats, then the parasite gets back in the cat's body and the whole life cycle of the parasite continues. So there's been a number of studies that showing also that rats, when they're infected, are more likely to take risks. And there's some speculation that may also be true in humans. So the question is, does that matter? Is risk taking, I don't know, risk taking to me seems like kind of vague when you hear someone say that, like taking risks. What does that mean? Are you more likely to go skydiving or more likely to I'm going to just put extra ketchup on my meatloaf? Like risk taking can take lots of forms, right? So
Right.
what are we really talking about?
Yeah.
Well, one study that has been replicated a number of times isn't about toxoplasmosis. It's actually about acetaminophen. And they've shown multiple times that when you take acetaminophen, it actually changes your risk behavior. So there was kind of a silly study that I was reading up the details on it. They actually had people looking at a computer screen, and you had like a balloon on there, and every time you push a button, like say the space bar or something like that, the balloon would inflate a little bit more on the screen. And you can push it as many times as you want, and but it could pop if you push too many times. You get 5 cents every time you push the button, and the balloon inflates a bit more. But if it pops, you lose all the money.
Okay.
And it's not even real money, right? This is like it's fictitious money. So the stakes are real low to begin with. But they do tell the participants, that your goal is to try to get as much money as possible. And some of the participants, they give them acetaminophen beforehand, and some they don't. And they found a correlation that the people who got the acetaminophen were more likely to push the button more and risk getting closer to popping, and thus actually maybe get more money, or maybe they pop the balloon, right? That wasn't really clear, but it was that they were more likely to push their luck and take that risk if they'd taken acetaminophen. So one of the things that is interesting about this is they also showed that it wasn't that you're more likely to take risks. The medicine doesn't make you take risks. It alters your perception of how much risk you are taking. So you go, this doesn't seem that risky. And then you take what you think is a completely, normal move for you. But really your sense of the risk has been altered. It hasn't actually made you necessarily take that risk on. Does that make sense? It's kind of a subtle difference, but I think kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So the question though is, that's pushing a little button at like a balloon blowing up on a screen when none of your money is on the line. So that's pretty low stakes as far as risk goes. And I was curious, does this have any real world consequences?
Right.
So whether we're talking about, taking Tylenol, which is what acetaminophen is, or whether you're infected with a parasite, does having a different perception of risk make a difference? Well, let's get back to our cast of characters from the beginning, and maybe we can answer that question. Go back to Yellowstone. There are mountain lions in Yellowstone Park. It's probably more well known for the wolves, but there definitely are mountain lions in parts of the park. And the ranges of those lions overlap with the wolves. And the mountain lions are the carriers of the parasite. And wolves who come into contact with their feces can become infected and become a host for the parasite as well. So, we can speculate, are are wolves that are infected more likely to take risks, and what would that look like? What would happen? Would this impact just that wolf, or would it have any kind of wider ecosystem level effect? Turns out, being infected as a wolf, it makes a huge difference to not just to that wolf, but to the scale, on the scale of the whole ecosystem of Yellowstone Park.
Huh.
An article came out last month. This is in the November 2022 issue of Communications Biology. And the title, I'm going to say, is, not surprisingly, a bit of a snoozer. It was called Parasitic Infection Increases Risk-Taking in Social Intermediate Host Carnivore.
You don't
Doesn't
think
that
that
sound
rolls
like
right
just
off the tongue?
I think it
Woo,
does.
what a page turner.
Ready to print, right?
Perfect.
Yeah, it's
There's
really
not
something.
even a colon in there. I mean, how is it a science
No,
article
not
without
even
a
a
colon?
It is pretty concise for a science
Yeah.
journal title. I will give them that. It doesn't really make you want to go, ooh, I bet there's something really interesting in here to read. But here's a quote just from the abstract, actually. Although this is open source, you can actually go and get the open access. Sorry, this is open access. You can get the whole thing. But in the abstract, they do say, quote, we used 26 years of wolf behavioral, spatial, and serological data, which is blood, basically, blood work, to show that wolf territory overlaps with areas of high cougar density was an important predictor of infection. Okay.
Makes sense.
Not too surprising, that part. But they go on to say, in addition, seropositive wolves, meaning those infected, were more likely to make high-risk decisions, such as dispersing and becoming a pack leader. Both factors critical to individual fitness and wolf vital rates. So there it is. Wolves that live in areas that overlap with mountain lions and are more likely to end up infected with the parasite. And those that become infected are more likely to become the leaders of their own packs.
That's wild.
Which,
Sure.
it's totally wild. It's like you think, here's this wolf and it has split off to become this bold leader and form its own pack. And part of the reason why is that it's got this infection that it doesn't know about it. It's probably just thinking, oh, the risk it's worth the reward in this situation, right? And there are definitely wolves that split off and form their own packs, probably that aren't infected, but more often than not, we find the ones that are the pack leaders are the ones that are infected, which is sort of mind-blowing to me to see that kind of connection. You think about something as wildly complex as like the number of packs and the structure within those packs within Yellowstone Park is actually being driven by a parasite, like that's found in the litter box of your cat at home. That is weird, like super weird. It's a very cool study. It shows that life is more complex. Ecosystems are more complex than we imagine. And it isn't just all these individuals making choices that are 100% under their control. The complexity of our world is a result of millions of factors constantly at play. And sometimes something as simple as essentially an invisible parasite can help shape entire ecosystems. So the interaction between species is often invisible, even from like big animals and stuff. But sometimes those invisible ecological interactions end up having major implications for like the complete structure of the environment as we see it and study it. So that's super cool. That's all I have today. I just thought this was a really cool study that showed this like bizarre relationship. I listed my source for the journal article earlier, but if you want for some reason to read up on the acetaminophen study, that was an article called Effects of Acetaminophen on Risk-Taking. Again, very succinct title on that one. That was in the July 2020 issue of Social, Cognitive, and Affective Neuroscience. So that's what I got.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Kirk.
Sure. We're going to take a quick little break, and when we come back, we're going to hear from James.
Woo!
See you soon.
Yeah, applause track.
People always ask me, Rachel, how do you come up with all of these different topics? Mostly the internet. But also, I got my interest in all of this by being at my local library as a kid. So this week, I would love for everyone to go and support their local library. Oftentimes, they have books, community events, and even audiobooks available for borrowing. So go check it out. Now back to the show.
Welcome back. Tonight, I think we're going to take a little bit of a journey, some twists and turns. Basically, I've created a 2-act play that is
All
going
right.
to tell us about everyone's new favorite synthetic, maybe robots, I don't know, organisms that
Okay.
have been called the Zenobots, which is
Oh, yeah, I've heard of these.
we're ready for Saturday morning cartoons just with the name alone. Like Disney is probably
Oh,
ready to
I want the action figure, the poster on my wall.
Yeah. I can already
Zenobots
see like
unite.
the 80s throwback lunchbox. We're really rocking here.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds amazing. It reminds me of Xenon, I'm not going to lie.
Okay.
I don't think there's any Xenon involved, but maybe.
No, but like just the
No.
name makes me think of Xenon.
Well, let's talk about where the name comes from, because I thought it
Yeah.
was just like some kind of nod to like the Alien series, like the Xenomorphs.
The
It is
Xenomorph?
not.
Oh, Xenomorphs?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But maybe we'll get there by the end of this play. So
Nothing's going to burst out of my chest cavity, is it, James? We had that
Just
2 weeks
wait.
ago on the show.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Oh,
Not
boy.
yet. So not
Not
yet is the answer.
Oh no.
Okay.
But the Xenobots get their names because they are derived from the stem cells of the African clawed frog, which Latin name is Xenopus laevis. And
There it is.
yeah, there you go. We got the African clawed frog. If you want to learn more about the African clawed frog, man, we talked about that a lot in the podcast. They can get it to grow teeth, because that's a good thing.
I don't know
We
how
need
I
more
feel about
frog
that.
teeth, yep.
Frog teeth are it's a real situation.
I'm adding it to my list.
Yeah. But the Xenobots are a kind of an experiment from the people that brought you Harvard University, Tufts University, and the University of Vermont, which I am not from the University of Vermont, but I'm from Vermont. So got like
Okay.
a local flavor here too.
All right.
Yeah, so we got like 2 safety schools and the University of Vermont. So I think it's important to kind of level set here.
I feel very safe tonight. Okay.
Exactly. So
Cool.
they took specific cells from the African clawed frog line. Specifically, they used skin cells and cardiac cells. The skin cells give the structure, they give the organism structure. The cardiac cells, they contract so they can move around their aquatic environment. They're basically like they're in little petri dishes with saline.
Mm-hmm.
So they
Okay.
start with these cells, these cell lines, and then they used an AI program to kind of brute force their way to like the perfect design for specific tasks. And that's where like the robot thing comes into play, right? So we're having them designed with a motion or some kind of task in mind. So they're not like actually programming the robots. They're not micro printing the robots, which was a big thing that was in the article. So I'm mentioning it.
Okay.
This article was from Nature, so kind of like a lower tier thing we're talking about here, just the journal Nature.
Okay.
All right.
That's like the inside baseball joke, right?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nature. Just
Yeah.
some minor
Just
magazine.
one of those.
It's
Anyway,
cool.
yeah. So they had this AI program. It came up with a couple different designs. One of them is really good at like bringing clumps of stuff together. So they'll put like little pellets in the petri dishes, and the specific shape will kind of corral them all together. So that's really nice for like sorting, I guess. And those shapes look like Pac-Man, and there's definitely like not an Act 2 twist with the Pac-Man shape. So we can just use that as a throwaway and never come back to it again. So the Pac-Man
I
shape is
don't
good at
believe you.
corralling things, right? It's good at corralling things if like a rogue cherry gets into it, I think it can kind of like gobble that up.
Okay.
Oh,
There
pretzels,
have been no
cherries,
ghosts
apples.
at
Yeah.
the University of Vermont since the Xenobots have been discovered, so
Very
I think
good.
correlation right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally
And
means
then
causation.
probably, it's science, why not? And then there's another design that has like these little flagella, which are technically for motion, but they're actually slower than the Pac-Man shaped
Oh, interesting.
Xenobot. Yeah, yeah. So it's
That
like
didn't work out then.
it didn't work out. Yeah, I guess so. It can move for a longer amount of time, but in a
Okay.
slower manner. And then there's like a more robust shape that is for transport, I guess. We got like the truck. We got the Optimus Prime like truck Xenobot too. Yeah, we're really creating our team here. Um
Good.
yeah. So they create these Xenobots. They have these like grand ideas of deploying them to like gather up microplastics in our oceans because they're great at sorting things. We got Pac-Man just like going around our polluted waterways and gathering up microplastics. They talked about medical applications. They didn't like specifically say what medical applications they're going for. I'm
Oh
assuming
boy.
it's exactly like the movie Inner Space or like the old Body Wars ride at Epcot Center.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Or like
Shrink you down and send you in, right?
yeah, exactly. Like
Uh-huh.
I'm assuming this is what we're going for. They're
Go
not
eat
I just
this
watched that episode of
thing.
Futurama like a week ago.
Yeah.
So
I gotta say though, they're like they're small, but they're not like that small. They're 0.4 millimeters. So like if you're gonna introduce
Okay.
that into the body,
okay.
we're
That
not
could
like
hurt.
talking capillaries exactly. Yeah, that's a pretty
Mhm.
big needle.
Oh, ow. I
Right.
didn't even think about the needle size. Oh no.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's a chonky Xenobot.
Oof.
Yes, exactly. And so they found out that when they made these designs, things were growing great. Again, that Pac-Man one is just like scooting around the petri dish. I got the video playing like on a loop now. I can't keep my eyes off of it. It's just like swirling around, doing its thing.
Oh,
It's got the
beautiful.
music going in the background. Pac-Man fever everywhere. So they can work as a group. Yeah.
Yep.
They can work as a swarm, which is a word that was used in the popular reporting, not so much in the article. I'm sure there's a reason for that.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like the CNN article used swarm a lot for some reason. I'm sure.
I can't imagine
Yeah.
why.
I can't imagine why at all.
Nah, this is
Yeah. And they
Nope.
can self-heal, which is good too, because there's like a lot of stem cells just like floating around their environment. They're created, but the building blocks are all around them, so they can use them to
Right.
self-heal. But
okay.
in
Wow.
the first article where they like broke the news of Xenobots, they were really careful to say, hey, don't worry. We made these synthetic AI created
Life forms.
life forms,
Mhm.
synthetic AI organic robots was what they were actually like this is coming from the scientist. Organic
Right.
robots. It's
Yeah,
fine.
wow.
They can self-heal, they can work as a group, they have swarm mentality, they can be programmed with RNA, but it's
What could go wrong?
fine. They can't like make their own Xenobots without us. We're in complete control. A
Yep.
few months later,
There it is.
there was an article that came out that was like, hey, remember we talked to you about these Pac-Man
Oh
shaped
no.
Xenobots that were real good at gathering stuff
Right.
up.
Yep.
Well,
What did they
were
do?
so good at gathering up the stuff of Xenobot formation, these cells that are just around, that they could create new Xenobots. And they could
Of
create them
course.
in a shape which the Xenobot thought was most efficient, no longer that the AI thought was most efficient. So,
What?
yeah.
Great.
So, like,
Okay.
so here's the two-step reveal. We have self-healing organic robots that can now self-replicate and have like gone past what the AI has decided is
And it's like
Yeah.
iterative design
Cool.
going on.
exactly.
So
So
when are they taking over?
well, that's what, at the Science Night podcast, we kind of have a Xenobot watch on. We just had an episode where we were focusing on AI. So we're like, by the way, the Xenobots have not yet taken over. We're
good.
assuming they will.
Yeah, I mean,
so we want to
they're
get
already on their
clarify,
way.
to clarify, like the Xenobots do not have artificial intelligence. The scientists used
Right.
artificial intelligence to help them figure
Exactly.
out how to
Yeah.
create them. Right? Yeah.
Right.
So
there
Rachel,
is
they're not real smart.
Well, they made
not
their
yet.
own, so they're working on it.
That's right. This is
Yep.
like we're still in year
Give
one
it
of
time.
Xenobot evolution.
Yeah.
So
Right.
this is like the actual thing. If you're like involved in any kind of evolutionary biology, it's not necessarily like the fact that they created their own version is pretty intense. It's the speed at which they got to that point. So we're talking like a couple
Right.
months.
Oh, awesome!
That's
Even better.
Yeah. So we got evolution going in hyperdrives. There hasn't been any new articles about the Xenobots since this May reporting that they can self-replicate. I'm assuming it's because they've actually taken over the lab.
I think they
But-
have.
Well, I
Yeah,
say they've gone dark, and they
live
yeah.
in the lab
maybe
now.
they haven't learned how to write yet.
And just to like kind of close out the story, the end of the subsequent Nature article telling us that doom is actually impending. They ended it by saying like, so they can self-replicate, they can self-heal, they can self-organize, but we could destroy them all really quickly. Don't worry. So I
Okay.
kind of imagine we have a 24-hour watch by like some undergraduate research assistant
Oh,
like
100%.
hovering over a button that if they start hearing like Daisy Daisy, they just hit the fire and the entirety of Burlington, Vermont goes up in flames.
Whoosh.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
Well, if we hear about Burlington, Vermont on fire, we'll maybe we'll know what's going down.
yeah. What we actually, kind of linking the threads all together, what we got to make sure is that we can't get any Toxoplasma gondii into the petri dish with the Xenobots, because now we got zombie synthetic robots.
Oof.
Oh my gosh, that'll start changing our behavior.
Yep.
Yeah, and if they get into wolves, like if they start riding wolves, think about that. Now
Oh
we
my
got
God.
synthetic mounted cavalry.
And what a
with
terrifying
very good
cavalry.
leader wolves.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Bonkers. Now, assuming these can only survive under very specific conditions, like in the petri dish, like
Well, it's
They
just
have to be, like,
saline.
in a-
Yeah, it's water. They're
in a- oh,
designed
it's all
to go into
saline,
water.
okay.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh well, that's good because there's not much salt water on Earth, so we
No,
should
there's
be
not
Sure,
much water
yeah.
anywhere.
No.
we'll be
Nope.
safe here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Perfect.
The conversation,
Huh.
there was an article on the conversation that was saying, they could be medical marvels or they could turn the entire world into gray goo. So
I love
you
how
know,
optimistic science
one or the
scientists
other.
can be.
I'm gonna advocate we take it easy on that one and
Mm-hmm.
you know
I
play a little
mean,
cautious, but but fascinating. I mean, I know by
absolutely.
researchers like have learned so much about life and how life works by being able to create something like this and be able to watch these things happen under controlled circumstances. The amount of information and learning that goes on must be
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where the popular reporting is wild and, the science
Oh,
yeah,
podcast
it's all like,
is picking up on that side of it. 'Cause
Your
it's fun.
brain's gonna get melted by this
Yeah.
experiment,
Yeah, the actual scientific reporting, except for when they found out they could self-replicate, they were a little concerned when they were writing those sentences. Like the materials and methods were napalm and
Oh,
like
good.
orbital strikes. But they're
Hmm.
really just trying to see what can AI and stem cells do for us. Really. Now
Which
maybe
is
I'm
really
being
cool
infected.
and very important and great research to be doing. But at the same time, I feel like this has similar vibes as the scientists from Jurassic Park.
Exactly. Exactly.
So-
Life finds a way.
life finds a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's the exact
say that
same
quite often.
frog that they used in Jurassic Park.
Oh, is
Oh,
it really?
good. Even better.
Yeah. Yeah, the African clawed frog. So, I mean, it pops up in a lot of sciencey things just because we do have a genome for it. So
Mm-hmm.
we use it as a filler. Like, sometimes Jurassic Park's kind of real. I mean, I say we like me. I don't use it as a filler.
Nope.
Yeah,
Yet.
I would never do such a thing. But,
I-
yeah. Yeah. So that's all I got about Xenobots. No, yeah. I guess if
Cool.
you want to read up on it, you can find it in the Oh gosh, where is the year? The March 2021 edition of Science. Sorry, I said
Woo!
Nature. It's in Science.
Oh, that's even
Oh, well,
more
that's
fancy.
just
Yeah.
Ugh,
There was a
crazy.
Nature article somewhere, but this isn't the one I'm talking about.
Fabulous.
So, yeah.
wonderful.
Right.
Well, we'll let's shoot to a break because I think we got to get Rachel. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
Awesome. See you in a minute.
All right, so we're almost 100 episodes into this podcast, and I think it's time to
Oh
talk
my
about.
gosh.
I know, right? I think it's time to talk about something that, while we as humans, we've kind of normalized this. Uh, we don't think of it as really strange, but it's actually really bizarre. When
Okay.
we talk about organisms, we generally categorize them as, when I'm talking like organisms like um, mm, eukaryotic life, you know? We tend to like
Okay.
categorize things as like invertebrates, or things without backbones, or vertebrates, which is like things with backbones, right?
Sure. Okay.
Obviously, there are exceptions. People are crazy. Not people, but life finds a way.
Life. Yeah.
Life is crazy. But we never really stop to think about like the bone part of that equation, and it's a shame because bones themselves are absolutely fascinating. Like the way that they work is kind of insane. Anyway, uh, for
So, wait, is your topic bones this week?
we're getting there.
All right.
It takes just bones in general.
Okay.
We're just going to talk
Just bones.
Like for example, it takes weeks to months for humans to recover from a bone break. Okay, and that break will scar, and there will be a scar on the bone forever. Our bone,
Oh yeah, yeah.
all of that, and then our bones actually help create blood, which is like a very distilled description of the jobs that bones actually
Of the
do.
process, yeah.
It's very, very distilled. But do either of you know what the fastest growing bones are?
In humans or
In
in
the
nature?
in nature, in the animal world, non-humans. We're
So
slow.
non-humans.
Fastest growing bones.
Fastest growing bones.
I mean, I'll be honest, I don't
That's a
know.
big category.
I'm gonna guess it's an animal that develops quickly and gets big because it's got a long way to go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go super niche. I'm gonna say it's the. Let's see. The humerus of the.
Great.
That is
Polar bear. I don't know.
oddly specific.
That's very specific, and I love it.
If that was
it was
right.
not, but you know, I appreciate it very much. No, one of the fastest growing bones in the animal kingdom are antlers.
Oh, of course. God. Yeah. Antlers.
Antlers. But you know that you remember that description that I already did about how long it takes for us to heal from a break, right? That's a bone that already exists.
Just a simple break.
Okay, simple break. Members of the animals that have antlers are members of the deer family. A deer can grow in the same time frame it takes for us to heal an already healed bone, or already like developed bone. They can grow 1.5
already formed
foot,
bone, yeah.
or 1.5 feet of new bone in that time frame.
That's absolutely just bizarre. Yeah.
So to give you
That's
even more
fast.
context, they grow about 1/4 of an inch of brand new bone every single day. That's just deer.
1/4 of an inch a day.
1/4 of an inch
when
a
you
day.
When you stop to think about, we're not even talking about like moose.
Oh,
and elk.
I'm gonna
Or
get
are you
to that.
lumping them all into?
Oh, I'm going to talk about it.
Awesome. Okay.
Which, for more perspective, that's 6 times the rate of our fingernails growth.
Oh, That makes me uncomfortable somehow. Okay.
Now, other members of the deer family, like elk, can grow up to an inch of brand new bone a day, and moose will grow because of how they grow their antlers. They have palmate growth. They grow a pound a day,
Pound a day. All right.
which is
Jeez.
awful.
That's a
I
lot
don't
of
like that
bone.
it is distilled into a pound.
I think I could grow about a pound a day though if I really
Not
Not
of
of
tried.
bone,
bone.
but
Oh,
just
I
of
absolutely
Not
can
of bone,
grow a
but
pound
just
of
like
something a day.
depends on
Yeah.
which pizza you're packing in.
yeah,
Oh, pizza, so good.
right.
So
Yeah.
if you, that'd be so cool.
And if only we could turn it into bone.
So just think about it.
Be
Like
very
you're a
bony. I don't
deer.
know.
Well, okay, yeah. Well, just think about it though. Like if not only are you growing an entirely new set of bone, so you're a deer, you're growing an entirely new set of bone especially if you're a male. You shed them in the winter. You, just after you have already attracted the ladies, may have been successful. You shed them in the winter, only to then grow a new set the next spring. So you're constantly growing these new sets of bones, which is just crazy.
It is quite strange when you stop and think about that's the solution nature came up with. This
Yeah.
is the most practical way to do it, is to grow these massive racks and just drop them
Mm-hmm.
and just regrow the whole thing.
Exactly. So how do they do it? How do they grow these massive antlers that they then drop every single year? So a lot of this has to do with the nutrients that go into it. When the antlers themselves are first being grown, what will happen is they actually are covered in this special velvet, which is a tissue, or we call it velvet. And it's this tissue that covers the antlers in the spring. It's
Right.
actually filled with blood vessels. Like it's very, very sensitive. And it's essential to the growth of the antlers. Like if something happens to the velvet or anything like that, it actually will damage and cause the antlers to grow malformed. So they have to be really careful. The velvet itself brings a lot more oxygen, nutrients, and blood to that area to allow it to grow. Eventually, what will happen is the velvet will get cut off from the blood supply as well as the rest of the antlers. And then what will happen is those will technically die because bone itself is a living tissue. Like in our bodies, it's not dead; it's a living
Right.
tissue. So these bones, the antlers, will eventually harden because they will become a dead tissue that's hanging out on top of your head, or the deer's head, not our head, I suppose. And what will happen
I mean,
is,
yeah, I would hope.
right? I would hope as well. So what happens is the velvet actually gets rubbed off once they get to like their maximum height and growth size, which is dependent on genetics mostly. Usually takes anywhere from 4 to 6 years for them to reach their maximum antler growth size.
Right, like each year it gets a little bigger than the previous year.
Exactly. And they will rub the velvet off because they no longer need that tissue. And I guess it's nicer and more attractive to the females if it doesn't have the velvet on. So they rub it off. I'm sure it also itches like crazy.
Oh,
It also looks
Right?
like horrific as it's coming because you can just see like a deer walking through the
Yeah.
woods with blood scrapes
Exactly. It's
hanging off its antlers.
just
It's
astounding.
wild.
So there's a couple of different theories.
majestic. Yeah.
So amazing. So there's a couple different ideas of why they have such a high rate of growth. There was a paper, a couple of resources, including this is a great website, skeletonmuseum.com.
Amazing. Okay. Love it.
One of the
Just by the
potential
name.
reasons, just the name is amazing. One of the reasons is related to the genes that are found that are responsible for antler growth, and 8 of those genes are related to bone cancer. have been linked to bone cancer.
Oh, fascinating.
Which makes a lot of sense because cancer
Yeah,
itself,
it does.
very distilled version, very bare basics, cancer is just the uncontrolled replication of cells. So if you're
Like
trying
very rapid.
very, very
growth,
rapid.
yeah.
So if you are trying to create a lot of bone cells to make antlers, it's kind of a bone cancer. But you would think that maybe
But
that
very
it's
controlled.
very controlled because they do actually have
Yeah.
really, really good inhibitor genes that control that rate very, very carefully. And they actually have deer have a lower instance of cancer than other mammalian species, which is interesting.
Fascinating. I gotta imagine that's something that is being very carefully and closely studied.
Absolutely. Just because, I mean,
Yeah.
it's such a problem everywhere else.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
Right.
too tailor-made.
Nature already has this figured out. Let's get on that and iterate that design.
Exactly.
Maybe the nanobots. No, never mind.
No.
Yeah.
Or the
Yeah,
Zenobots.
what we
Xenobots,
have to do is keep this growth. We have to keep the growth away from the Xenobots because we can't get like 1 pound
That would
of
be too
Xenobot
many.
Oh, I bet
produced
you
every
could.
day.
But would that be good? That'd be bad.
Exponentially. No, we can't have that. I mean, it doesn't. It depends on what side you're on the Xenobot fight, right? Maybe this is the the Rubicon we're about to
no.
cross.
Oh boy. All right.
Oh dear.
But antlers.
Antlers. So one thing that's
Yeah.
really interesting to me, at least too, is the fact that antlers actually they fall off every season. They go through all of this effort to be able to grow these antlers, and then they more or less, once the velvet is lost, the bone itself is dead. So eventually, after they've made it and everything, and it's actually this is controlled by the amount of daylight that the deer are exposed to. So deer species in the northern and way southern regions, they shed them in the winter because they're not getting as much sunlight. But the ones who are in more temperate areas, or not temperate, tropical areas, they can grow and shed them at different times depending on whatever it is, or they might not shed those antlers at all.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So what happens is the bone at the base of their skull, it's called the petiole. Yeah.
Okay.
Is actually destroyed by osteoclasts, which is what causes the antlers to fall off. So osteoclasts are pretty much they're cells that break down dead bone. Is the bare bones of that. Ha ha ha.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. Just
So are they made out of calcium?
Ooh.
I gotta know. Are antlers made out of
Yes.
calcium? Like our bones?
Yeah.
So that is something that comes up all the time, is like antlers and horns and things like that. Antlers are bone. When they are first starting to grow, the growth happens at the tip of the antler itself. And that's initially cartilage, but eventually is replaced by bone tissue. But it is
and their
horn is keratin, right?
Yes.
Horn is like a nail.
Yeah, a horn would be like a goat. They have what a horn is. They never shed those. It actually has bone on the inside, and the outside is a keratin sheath. And they never shed those.
So
crazy.
If what I understand, the calcium comes from the bones in the animal's body. Like they are stealing calcium from their other bones to build more bones. So that's got to be.
Yeah.
Seems like a risky thing to be doing.
It's pretty risky. Yeah. It's very energetically intense. Yeah. That it's a bit much. But the benefits outweigh the consequences of it. They get to show better they get to show their fitness to the females. They often will fight with those as well. They actually are able to protect themselves better against predation when they do
Yep,
have
yep.
those antlers too. So
Wow, certainly cool. I love when there's these topics that like you don't think, oh, antlers, that's not that strange. When you really start
Right?
breaking it down and looking at all the little details, like it's pretty weird.
It's
You know?
very
I mean,
weird. We never think about it, and it's absolutely bonkers.
I'm just wondering if we need to make sure that deer are getting on like some kind of calcium supplement regimen.
They
Uh,
probably do.
So wildlife managers get on that.
Yeah, they are able to.
I mean, they
create
definitely
it.
do seek out calcium during that time, and they will crave it.
Yeah, and
sure.
they can use it as a type, like they are able to make calcium like in a chemical sense in their body for the antlers. But yeah, they have been known to gnaw on bones and things that they find, which is creepy. Really weird to watch.
Sure.
Yeah, I picture like a wolf gnawing on a bone, like a deer sitting there gnawing on a bone. That just seems all manner of wrong.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more unwholesome, huh?
Ugh, awful.
Something's unnatural about it. I don't know.
Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, maybe for like, in the sense that don't do this, hunters, it's illegal. But if you're gonna like try to get deer to a certain place, maybe instead of putting corn down or something, put some Centrum osteoporosis medication
There you
down,
go.
and you'll have
That'd be way
better
better.
luck.
I
Yeah.
mean, corn isn't good for deer in the first place. They can't really digest that
Right.
anyway. So
Yeah. But a multivitamin is great.
they
for
would
that.
love it.
Don't do this.
Yeah, don't do that.
Just
Don't bait the deer. That
disclaimer,
is like actually
do
super
this.
illegal for multiple
Yeah.
reasons.
But if you wanted to put out a Vermont sharp cheddar cheese,
Ooh.
Sounds amazing. All right. Well, that's all I have on antlers today. I think that's it. James, is there anything you'd like to plug before we head out? I mean, everybody obviously go check out his really cool podcast, Science Night, right?
Science Night. Yeah, we are on everything that you listen to podcasts on. If you can't find us on your podcatcher of choice, like send us an email and we'll try to get on it. But I try to keep up on that. You can also go to scinight.com, SCINIGHT.com, where you got like all our past episodes and links and stuff like that. So there's a lot to see, and you can see it all on our website, scinight.com. That's not rehearsed at all. That's not our outro.
Very nice,
Good.
very nice.
All right.
Well, thanks for being on, James.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody for listening. We appreciate you, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.
Science.
What is it?
Who does it?
Why does it matter?
The Science Night podcast answers these questions by giving scientists a place to tell their story.
We also highlight science news and discoveries that will have you asking, my God, what have I done?
What weird thing are we going to talk about this week that involves a frog?
They made an organic robot? Like, didn't they see The Matrix?
Join us every other Friday, wherever you get podcasts, and at scinight.com.